The conference hall stretched across half a kilometer of polished crystal, its walls reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. Representatives from 200 worlds gathered in their designated sectors, some breathing oxygen, others methane, each contained within environmental bubbles suited to their biology. At the center of it all, the Galactic Council's primary display flickered to life, ready for another routine monthly assessment. Ambassador Thelvar of the Kree Empire stood at the podium, his forearms gesturing gracefully as he cycled through surveillance reports. 17 sectors, 400 monitored civilizations, all catalogued and observed according to protocols established millennia ago. The gathered representatives barely paid attention anymore. These meetings had become formality. The monitoring of primitive worlds, a task so mundane that most delegates used the time to catch up on correspondence. Hyunwoo sat in the observation team's section, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. As lead analyst for Sector 7, he'd reviewed these reports 1,000 times. Pre-contact civilizations developing agriculture, discovering metals, occasionally achieving flight. The patterns repeated endlessly across the galaxy. Intelligence emerged, struggled, grew, and eventually reached for the stars. Then the Council made contact, offered membership, and integrated another species into the vast network of galactic civilization. The display shifted to the Sol system. Hyunwoo had always found the humans interesting. They'd gone from splitting atoms to quantum computing in less than a century. Their rate of development defied the standard models. He'd written 3 papers on their advancement, arguing they deserved upgraded monitoring status. His superiors had filed the papers away, unread. The holographic image should have shown a blue and green world, third from its sun, with a large gray moon in orbit. Instead, the display showed nothing but empty space. The orbital path was there, marked by the system's gravitational calculations, but the planet was gone. Hyunwoo's hand froze over his controls. He ran the diagnostic sequence twice, then 3 times. The system reported no malfunctions. He pulled up the raw feed from the monitoring satellite positioned at the system's edge. Still nothing. Just vacuum where a world should be. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Several nearby delegates glanced his way with annoyance. Hyunwoo ignored them and activated his communication link to the podium. Ambassador Thelvar, we have a situation with the Sol system feed. Thelvar paused mid-gesture, his primary eyes swiveling toward the observation section. Analyst Hyunwoo. What nature of situation? The planet is gone, sir. Earth. Designation. Sol 3. It's not there anymore. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Thelvar's facial plates shifted in what Hyunwoo had learned to recognize as irritation. Clarify. Equipment failure? No, sir. I've run full diagnostics. The monitoring equipment is functioning perfectly. The planet simply isn't where it should be. Neither is its moon or any of the orbital infrastructure the humans had constructed. Counselor Veltas, a towering figure from the Korthon Collective, activated his speaker from across the chamber. His voice boomed through the hall. This is obviously a technical error. A planet doesn't simply vanish. Reset the monitoring systems and move on. Hyunwoo felt his jaw tighten. He pulled up additional data streams, throwing them onto the main display for everyone to see. Sir, with respect, I have confirmation from 3 separate monitoring stations. The planet, its moon, and all artificial satellites are absent. No debris field, no energy signatures from destruction, no gravitational anomalies that would indicate a collision. Just empty space. Another counselor, Nara of the Velen Concord, leaned forward in her seat. Unlike Velthas, her species resembled humans in basic structure, though her skin held a faint luminescence. When was the last confirmed observation? Hyunwoo checked his logs. 47 standard hours ago. All systems normal. The humans were conducting their usual activities. Satellite communications, spacecraft traffic between their world and their moon. Everything standard for a developing technological civilization. And now? Nara asked. Now there's nothing. The sun still burns. The other planets in the system are unchanged. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all in their expected positions. But the third planet and its moon have vanished completely. The chamber erupted in conversation. Velthas was shouting something about incompetence and wasted time. Other counselors were demanding explanations, theories, anything that made sense. Hyunwoo had worked for the council for 15 years and had never seen such disorder in the assembly. Thelvar raised all four arms, calling for silence. This matter requires investigation. I'm ordering a science team to physically travel to the Sol system and assess the situation directly. Until we have confirmed data, we'll suspend judgment. Commander Jiwon received the assignment 6 hours later. She'd expected something routine when the council contacted her. Perhaps escort duty for a diplomatic vessel or a minor border dispute. Instead, she found herself loading her science ship with every sensor package and analytical tool the council possessed. The journey to Seoul took 3 weeks at standard warp. Jiwon spent the time reviewing everything the council knew about humanity. It wasn't much. They were a young species, barely past the point of splitting the atom. Violent, certainly. Their history was filled with wars and conflicts, but also creative and adaptable. Their art, music, and literature showed a depth of emotion that many older species found fascinating. What caught Jiwon's attention was their science fiction. The humans were obsessed with space travel and alien contact. Their entertainment was filled with stories of encounters with other species, usually hostile. They seemed to expect that the universe was dangerous, that other civilizations would be threats rather than friends. It made her wonder what kind of world produced such paranoid creativity. When her ship dropped out of warp at the edge of the Sol system, the first thing Jiwon did was confirm what Hyunwoo had reported. She'd half expected to find the planet exactly where it should be. The whole thing a ridiculous mistake, but the sensors agreed with the monitoring stations. The third orbital position was empty. She ordered her crew to spread out, scanning everything. They spent 2 days taking measurements, analyzing radiation patterns, studying the gravitational fields. The physics made no sense. The mass was still there, affecting the orbits of the other planets exactly as it should. But there was nothing visible, nothing detectable, occupying that space. Junior scientist Mireille was the one who found the anomaly. She'd been analyzing background radiation when she noticed a pattern. Faint, but distinctive. It was an energy signature unlike anything in the Council's databases. More intriguing, she found similar but much smaller signatures scattered throughout the inner system. All of them, weeks or months old. Commander, Mireille said, her voice tight with uncertainty. It looks like someone was practicing something. These smaller signatures, they follow the same pattern as the large one where Earth should be. Like they were testing the process on smaller objects first. 8. Jiwon stared at the data, feeling something cold settle in her stomach. You're saying the humans did this themselves? I don't know what else it could be. There's no evidence of external forces, no weapons signatures, nothing to suggest an attack or natural disaster. Whatever happened here, it originated from Earth itself. Jiwon filed her report that same day. The response from the Council was swift. They classified Earth as a lost civilization, cause unknown, and prepared to move on. But Jiwon couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. Before leaving the system, she recorded one final note in her personal log. The humans didn't die. They left. And whatever they used to do it, they built it themselves in less than a century. We should be asking why they felt they needed to disappear. What were they afraid of? Nobody at the Council would read that log for another 3 months. By then, it would be too late. Security Director Daeho had built his career on noticing things other people missed. Small inconsistencies, gaps in records, reports that were just a little too clean. The official conclusion about Earth bothered him like a splinter under his skin. Natural disasters left evidence. Civilizations that destroyed themselves left ruins. Planets didn't just disappear. He sat alone in his office, 3 hours past the end of his shift, scrolling through the official report for the 15th time. Lost civilization. Cause unknown. File closed. The council was ready to forget about the humans and move on. But something in Commander Jiwan's sensor logs kept nagging at him. Those practice signatures scattered around the Sol system told a story nobody wanted to hear. Daeho activated his access codes and began pulling files from the restricted archives. As security director, he had clearance that most council members didn't. He started with the complete observation records for Earth, going back 50 years. The public files contained summaries and highlight reports. The restricted archives contained everything. Raw data streams, intercepted communications, detailed analysis of human technological development. What he found made his blood run cold. The humans had been advancing impossibly fast. Their computer technology had jumped from primitive calculating machines to quantum processors in 70 years. Their physics theories had gone from basic relativity to complex multidimensional mathematics that the Council's own scientists struggled to understand. And their space program, initially crude rockets and capsules, had evolved into sophisticated orbital infrastructure in just 2 generations. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was what the humans spent their time thinking about. Their entertainment, their literature, their art. All of it was obsessed with one theme: aliens. And not friendly aliens offering peace and knowledge. Their stories were filled with hostile empires, resource-hungry civilizations that saw younger species as prey, invasions, and conquests, and desperate struggles for survival. Daeho pulled up examples. Films where humanity fought against overwhelming alien forces. Books describing galactic empires that enslaved primitive worlds. Television shows about resistance movements fighting for freedom against technological superior oppressors. The humans seemed convinced that first contact would be hostile. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Why would a species develop such a paranoid worldview? Unless they had reason to be paranoid. He dove deeper into the archives, looking for anything that might explain the human's perspective. That's when he found the classified report from 3 years ago. It had been buried under layers of security restrictions, accessible only to the highest levels of Council intelligence. The file was labeled Unauthorized Survey Incident, Sol System. Daeho's hands shook slightly as he opened it. According to the report, a Council survey ship had entered the Sol system without proper authorization. The ship, commanded by an officer named Kelvan, had been conducting what the report called Standard Resource Assessment of Earth and its moon. They'd scanned the planet's mineral deposits, cataloged its biological diversity, and evaluated the human population for what the report described as labor potential and cultural adaptability. Standard procedure, the report said. The Council maintained thousands of pre-contact civilizations as future assets, worlds that could be integrated into the galactic economy once they reached sufficient development. The survey ships gathered data so that when contact was finally made, the Council knew exactly what resources each planet offered. Daeho felt sick. He'd known about the asset evaluation program in abstract terms, but seeing it spelled out so clinically made it real. The Council had been treating developing civilizations like crops to be harvested when ripe. He kept reading. The survey ship had spent 2 days in the Sol system, conducting its scans. Then something happened. The humans had detected them, despite their primitive technology. Despite the survey ship's advanced stealth systems, the humans had known someone was watching. They'd sent a transmission on basic mathematical frequencies, the kind of simple communication that any technological species should be able to decode. The message had been short. We see you. We are not ready. Leave us alone. The survey ship had ignored the transmission. Captain Kelvan's report noted it as evidence of developing awareness, but nothing requiring action. They'd continued their scans for another 30 hours. Then the ship's systems had begun failing. Power fluctuations, navigation errors, life support glitches. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to be concerning. The crew reported feeling watched, experiencing strange dreams, seeing shadows in empty corridors. After 6 hours of increasing malfunctions, the ship's systems had suddenly restored themselves. Everything went back to normal. But the crew was shaken. Captain Kelvan had ordered an immediate departure from the system. His report concluded with a recommendation that Earth be upgraded to maximum monitoring status, with no further unauthorized contact until the species reached Council-appropriate development levels. The incident had been classified. The crew had been debriefed, scattered to different assignments across the galaxy, and sworn to secrecy. Earth's monitoring had been increased, but quietly, without explanation. The Council's official policy toward the humans remained unchanged. Deho sat in the darkness of his office, the glow of his displays the only light the humans had known. They'd known they were being watched, studied, evaluated like livestock, and instead of panicking or trying to communicate further, they'd gone silent. Their radio transmissions had continued, their normal daily activities had proceeded, but they'd never sent another message to the stars. He pulled up Earth's final 3 years of observation data. On the surface, everything looked normal. The humans continued their technological advancement, built more satellites, expanded their space stations. But when Deho looked closer, he saw the gaps. Large sections of their internet had gone dark, encrypted beyond the Council's ability to crack. Massive amounts of resources had been diverted to projects with vague public descriptions. Whole research facilities had disappeared from satellite imagery, hidden underground, or disguised as something mundane. The humans had known someone was coming. And they'd prepared. Deho needed someone he could trust. He thought of Counselor Nara, one of the few council members who'd questioned the official explanation of Earth's disappearance. She had a reputation for integrity, for asking uncomfortable questions that other counselors preferred to ignore. He found her in the council gardens, a vast dome of engineered ecosystems representing hundreds of worlds. She was studying a flowering plant from her homeworld when Deho approached. "Director Deho," she said, not looking up from the flower. "I wondered when you'd come find me. You've been digging through the archives. You know, I have my own sources. I've been watching Earth's file myself. The official conclusion doesn't match the evidence." Deho glanced around, making sure they were alone. "I found something. A classified report from 3 years ago. A survey ship visited Earth without authorization." Nara's luminescent skin dimmed slightly, her species equivalent of going pale. They returned to Deho's office and spent the next 4 hours reviewing everything he'd found. The unauthorized survey, the human detection, the mysterious system failures, and the subsequent cover-up. When they finished, Nara sat in silence for a long time. "We've been treating them like animals," she finally said. "Watching them, studying them, planning how to use them. And they knew. They saw what we were. The question is," Deho said, "what did they do about it?" Nara pulled up the energy signatures that Mireille had detected in the Sol system. "And they did it in less than 3 years, from the moment they knew we existed." "What does that tell you?" Deho understood. "It tells me that we terrified them. And terrified humans are apparently very creative." "More than creative," Nara said, her voice quiet. "They achieved something in 3 years that our best scientists consider impossible. They moved an entire planet out of normal space. And if they can do that, what else can they do?" They both stared at the data displays, at the empty spot where Earth should be. Somewhere out there, hidden in some pocket of folded space that the Council couldn't detect or reach, humanity was still alive, still watching, still waiting. "We need to bring this to the full Council," Nara said. "They won't believe us. Velthas and the others, they want this buried. Admitting what we've been doing to pre-contact species would cause a political disaster." Nara stood, her expression hardening. Then we'll make them believe. Because if we don't, if we pretend this didn't happen, we're going to regret it. The humans hid from us for a reason. The question we should be asking is, what happens when they decide to stop hiding? Daeho had no answer. But deep down, in the part of him that had learned to notice things others missed, he felt certain they would find out soon. Daeho assembled his team in a secure facility, away from the main council buildings. He needed people he could trust, specialists who would follow the evidence wherever it led. Yuna arrived first, a surveillance expert who'd spent her career intercepting and analyzing communications from across the galaxy. Taeyang came next, a theoretical physicist whose papers on dimensional mechanics had been considered too radical for mainstream acceptance. Finally, there was Sunwoo, an intelligence officer with a talent for finding information people wanted to stay hidden. They gathered around a circular table, holographic displays floating in the air between them. Daeho laid out everything he and Nara had discovered: the unauthorized survey ship, the human detection, the 3 years of suspicious silence before Earth disappeared. When he finished, the room was quiet. Yuna broke the silence. "You're asking us to reconstruct what happened during those 3 years, to figure out how humans went from detecting a stealth ship to vanishing their entire planet." "Yes," Daeho said. "The Council wants to forget about Earth. I think that would be a mistake." Taeyang was studying the energy signatures from the Sol system, his eyes moving rapidly across the data. "These readings are fascinating. Whatever the humans did, it wasn't conventional displacement. This is something else entirely. Like they folded space around their planet and slipped it into a pocket dimension." "Is that even possible?" Sunwoo asked. "According to our current understanding?" "No. But clearly, the humans found a way." Taeyang pulled up additional calculations. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible for them, unless they developed something we don't know about. Yuna had already started working, her fingers dancing across her terminal. "I'm pulling archived transmission intercepts from Earth. The Council monitors radio and data signals from all observed worlds. Most of it is routine: television broadcasts, internet traffic, satellite communications. But I'm looking for gaps, for encrypted channels we couldn't crack." Hours turned into days. The team worked in shifts, sleeping in the facility's quarters, eating meals without tasting them. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. Yuna was the first to find something significant. "Look at this. 3 years ago, right after that survey ship incident, there's a massive spike in encrypted communications between major human governments. Before that incident, Earth's nations were barely speaking to each other. They had territorial disputes, trade conflicts, all the normal friction of a developing civilization. But after the survey ship, everything changes." She threw the data onto the main display. The spike was obvious: a sudden increase in communication that lasted for weeks. Then, it dropped off sharply. "They unified," Yuna continued. "Not publicly. On the surface, their governments still appeared to be separate entities. But in secret, they were coordinating something massive." Sunwoo had been digging through recovered human databases, information the Council had captured from their internet before the planet disappeared. "I found references to something called Project Haven. Publicly, it was described as a deep space colonization initiative. They claimed to be building generation ships to reach other star systems. But," Daeho prompted, "but the numbers don't add up. The humans poured 30% of their global economy into this project. That's an insane amount for a colonization effort. And the facilities they built, the ones we could track, were all focused on energy research and dimensional physics, not spacecraft construction." Taeyang had been listening quietly, running calculations on his own terminal. Now he looked up, his expression troubled. They weren't planning to run away. They were planning to hide all of their planet. He pulled up his work. "Look at the energy signatures Mireille found in the Sol system. The small ones. The test runs. I've been analyzing their progression. The first signature is tiny. Maybe the size of a small satellite. Then larger. A space station, perhaps. Then, their moon. He paused, letting that sink in. They were practicing, learning how to shift objects into dimensional space and bring them back. Yuna added another piece to the puzzle. I recovered fragments of classified communications from what appears to be Project Haven's leadership. Most of it is too heavily encrypted to read. But I got portions. One fragment translates roughly to, "If they're watching us now, they'll come for us eventually. We need to be somewhere they can't find us." The picture was becoming clear, and it was more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. The humans hadn't panicked when they discovered the Council. They'd analyzed the threat, unified their entire species in secret, and developed technology that shouldn't exist. All in less than 3 years. Sun Wu found the final piece. He'd been cross-referencing human scientific publications, looking for breakthroughs that might explain their achievement. There, he said, highlighting a paper published 2.5 years ago. A human physicist named Park Jin-young, working at something called the Seoul Quantum Research Institute. She published a theoretical paper on micro-wormhole generation and stability. The paper was peer-reviewed, published in a major journal, and largely ignored by the human scientific community. Why ignored? Deho asked. Because it was too revolutionary. Her colleagues thought it was interesting theory, but practically impossible. But look at the dates. This paper was published 6 months after the survey ship incident, and 3 months later, Park Jin-young disappeared from all public records. No death certificate, no resignation from her institute. She just vanished. Taeyang was reading the paper, his eyes growing wider. This is brilliant. She didn't invent new physics. She just applied existing theories in a completely novel way. The Council has known about these principles for centuries but never thought to combine them like this. She's describing exactly what we're seeing in the Sol system signatures. Yuna had pulled up more data on Park Jin-young. She wasn't the only one. In the year following the survey ship incident, over 300 of Earth's top scientists disappeared from public view. Physicists, engineers, computer scientists, all gone. Officially, they took private sector jobs or retired. Unofficially, they all vanished into Project Haven. The team worked through the night, assembling a timeline. The survey ship arrives. The humans detect it and send their warning. The ship ignores them and continues scanning. Then, the mysterious system failures force the ship to leave. Immediately after, Earth's governments secretly unify. They recruit their best minds and pour massive resources into Project Haven. They develop micro-wormhole technology. They test it on increasingly larger objects. And finally, 3 years after first detecting the Council's presence, they shift their entire planet into dimensional space. But there was one more piece of data that Yuna uncovered, and it changed everything. She'd been searching for any final transmissions from Earth. Anything that might have been sent right before the planet disappeared. Most intelligence analysts would have looked at official channels, government communications, diplomatic frequencies. Yuna looked everywhere else. She found it buried in an intercepted data packet from a Council listening post at the edge of the Sol system. The post had recorded a brief transmission sent between Earth and Mars, one of the last communications before the planet vanished. It wasn't encrypted, but it wasn't broadcast widely either. Just a simple message, almost casual in its tone. Mars colony acknowledges receipt of evacuation plan. All personnel ready for transition. Good luck to everyone on the homeworld. Wherever we end up, we'll find each other again. Then there was another transmission, this one even shorter. Sent on no particular frequency, almost like someone shouting into the void. We're not gone. We're just not here anymore. And we're watching you now. Deho stared at the message. They took Mars too? Taeyang checked the current sensor data from the Sol system. Mars is still there. But let me check something. He ran a deep scan analysis. Wait. This is strange. Mars is there, but it's different. The atmospheric composition has changed slightly. The surface settlements the humans built, they're reading as abandoned. Like they were evacuated. They didn't just hide Earth. Yuna said slowly. They evacuated their people from Mars and brought them to Earth before shifting the whole planet. They didn't want to leave anyone behind. Sun Wu was reading the final message again. We're watching you now. That's not a goodbye. That's a promise. Or a threat. Daeho gathered all their findings into a comprehensive report. Charts showing the timeline. Analysis of the energy signatures. Recovered human communications. Everything. It painted a picture that would make the council very uncomfortable. They brought it to Counselor Nara first. She read through it carefully, her luminescent skin flickering with what Daeho had learned to recognize as distress. This is extraordinary. They didn't just achieve the impossible. They did it deliberately, with purpose and planning. We need to present this to the full council, Daeho said. The presentation happened a week later. Daeho stood before the assembled council members, showing them everything his team had discovered. He watched their reactions. Some looked skeptical, others concerned, but many, including Velthas, looked annoyed at having their time wasted. When Daeho finished, Velthas was the first to speak. So primitive humans scared themselves into hiding. Let them cower in whatever dimensional pocket they've found. They're no longer our concern. Other counselors nodded in agreement. One added, if they want to isolate themselves from galactic civilization, that's their choice. We have more important matters to address. But Nara stood, her voice cutting through the dismissive murmurs. You're all missing the point. These humans went from detecting a stealth ship to developing impossible technology in 3 years. 3 years. Most council species take centuries to reach such advancement. And they did it because they were afraid of us. So what? Another counselor asked. Nara turned to face the full assembly. They can hide an entire planet. They can move it through dimensions we barely understand. They left us a message, saying, they're watching us now. The question you should be asking isn't where they went. It's what else they can do. The chamber fell silent. Daeho could see the realization slowly spreading through some of the members. They'd been so focused on the fact that Earth had disappeared that they hadn't considered the implications of how it disappeared. If they can hide a planet, Nara continued, her voice quiet but firm. What else can they hide? Nobody had an answer. But in the weeks that followed, they would discover that Nara's question was more important than any of them realized. The first incident happened 3 months after Earth's disappearance. A Council military research station in the Outer Rim sectors, home to some of the most classified weapons development in the galaxy, suddenly went dark. No distress signal, no warning, just a complete loss of communication. When the emergency response team arrived 6 hours later, they found the station intact but completely powered down. Every system had been shut off simultaneously. The crew was unharmed, but shaken. They reported that their computers had simply stopped working, all at once. Lights went out, life support switched to emergency backup, and they'd spent 6 hours in the dark before everything mysteriously came back online. The station commander, a veteran officer named Kelthon, filed a report that made its way to Daeho's desk. What caught his attention wasn't the power failure itself, but the timing. 6 hours. The same amount of time the survey ship near Earth had experienced system malfunctions 3 years ago. Daeho pulled the station's logs. During those 6 hours of darkness, someone had accessed every computer on the station. They'd copied entire databases, research files, weapons specifications. Everything. Nothing had been deleted or destroyed. The intruder had simply looked, copied, and left. He brought it to Nara. It's starting. She read the report, her expression grim. We need to take this to the council. With what evidence? A power failure and some missing data? They'll call it a technical glitch. End quote. End quote. End quote. Nara looked at him steadily. Then we wait for the next incident. Because there will be a next incident. She was right. 2 weeks later, a council flagship conducting what they officially called resource surveys of pre-contact worlds dropped out of warp in empty space. Nowhere near its intended destination. The navigation system had been completely reprogrammed. When the crew investigated, they found that someone had remotely accessed their computers while they were traveling faster than light, something that should have been impossible. The ship's captain found a message on his personal terminal. It was written in perfect galactic standard, the official language used by all council species. Stop hunting. The third incident was more dramatic. A convoy of transport ships carrying equipment for a new observation post dropped out of warp to find their path blocked, not by ships or weapons, but by a gravitational anomaly that appeared on their sensors as massive as a planet. It sat in their flight path for exactly 30 minutes, forcing them to change course, then vanished without a trace. Deho's team began tracking every unusual event across council space. The pattern became clear quickly. Every incident occurred at locations where the council maintained surveillance of pre-contact species or conducted resource evaluation operations. Someone was mapping the council's entire intelligence network. Yuna spent days analyzing the reports, looking for patterns in the data. They're not just watching random places. Look at this. She brought up a star map, showing every incident location. Each of these sites is connected to pre-contact observation. And they're not attacking or destroying anything. They're just letting us know they can reach these places. Taeyang was studying the sensor data from the gravitational anomaly. This is the same energy signature we found in the Sol system. Whatever the humans did to hide Earth, they're using the same technology to appear and disappear at will. They're showing us that they can go anywhere they want, and we can't stop them or detect them. More incidents followed. Ships reported sensor ghosts. Phantom vessels that appeared on their screens and vanished. Long-range observation posts found their equipment malfunctioning at crucial moments. Data centers reported intrusions that left no trace except copied files. Each time, the pattern was the same. No violence, no destruction, just a demonstration of capability. Sunwoo made a discovery that changed their understanding of the situation. He'd been going through the Council's deepest archives, looking for anything that might relate to vanishing civilizations. What he found was classified at the highest levels, files that even most Council members didn't know existed. "We need to see this," he said, calling the team together. He pulled up records going back 2 centuries. They detailed pre-contact civilizations that had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. 17 of them, in total. Each time, the Council had classified the disappearance as natural disaster or self-destruction. But the pattern matched Earth exactly. Advanced species, approaching space travel capability, under Council surveillance. Then, gone. With no evidence of what happened to them. They weren't the first, Deho said, his voice hollow. Earth wasn't the first to figure out they were being watched. Yuna was scanning through the files. Look at the dates. The disappearances accelerated over the past 50 years, and each one happened shortly after the Council increased its observation or sent survey teams. These other civilizations, Nara said, having joined them after hearing about the discovery, they all did what Earth did. They found a way to hide from us. Taeyang pulled up the energy signature data they'd been collecting from the recent incidents. And now they're all working together. These signatures aren't just from human technology. There are variations, subtle differences, multiple species, multiple approaches to the same problem. They've found each other somehow. Quote, the implications were staggering. The Council hadn't just terrified humanity into hiding. They'd been doing it for centuries. To species after species. And now all those hidden civilizations had allied together. Sunwoo was going through the incident reports again, cross-referencing them with the Council's pre-contact monitoring sites. They're not just demonstrating capability. They're gathering intelligence. Every place they've appeared, every system they've accessed, it's all related to the Council's observation network. They're learning everything about how we watch developing species, which means they can reach every pre-contact civilization the Council monitors, Yuna added. They're mapping our entire operation. Deho felt cold. They're not protecting just themselves. They're positioning to protect all the others. Before they could discuss further, every communication system in the facility activated simultaneously. Not just their terminals, but every screen, every speaker, every holographic display. The same thing was happening across the entire Council network, from the central chambers to the furthest outposts. A voice spoke in Galactic Standard, human in its cadence and tone, but perfectly pronounced. We know what you've been doing. We know about the observation protocols, the exploitation plans, the species you've destroyed to control resources. We've been talking to the others you've been watching. They're not alone anymore. Neither are we. This is your only warning. Stop the hunts, or we stop you. The transmission ended. Deho's terminal lit up with incoming reports from across Council space. Every single communication center had received the message. But more than that, every Council database had been tagged. Thousands of coordinates appeared in their systems, each one marked with a simple designation. Protected. Deho pulled up the coordinates. Each one corresponded to a pre-contact civilization currently under Council observation. Hundreds of worlds, species the Council had been watching and evaluating for eventual integration. All of them now marked by the hidden civilizations. They're claiming them, Nara said softly. Every single world we're monitoring. They're putting it under their protection. The Council chambers exploded into chaos within the hour. Emergency sessions were called. Military commanders demanded response plans. Intelligence officers scrambled to assess the threat. And through it all, Deho's team kept analyzing the data, trying to understand the full scope of what they were facing. Yuna made one more discovery that night, something that had been buried in the transmission's metadata. They didn't just send a message. They demonstrated something. This transmission reached every Council system simultaneously. That should be impossible. The speed of light limits how fast signals can travel. But they sent this message to thousands of systems at the exact same instant. How? Taeyang asked. I don't know. Some kind of quantum entanglement network, maybe? Or they've found a way to communicate through the same dimensional space they use to hide. Either way, it means they have a communication network that spans the entire galaxy, and it's faster than anything we have. Deho looked at the coordinates still glowing on his display. Hundreds of pre-contact worlds, all marked as protected, all beyond the Council's reach now. They're not fighting us. They're quarantining us, cutting us off from every species they think we might harm. The question is, Nara said, what happens if we ignore their warning? Nobody wanted to answer that. But Deho knew they would find out soon. The Council wasn't the type to back down from threats, no matter how capable the enemy appeared to be. Pride and power were more important to them than wisdom. He looked at his team, saw the same understanding in their eyes. They'd uncovered the truth about what the Council had been doing to developing species, about how many civilizations had fled into hiding to escape exploitation. And now all those hidden species were standing together, showing their teeth. We need to convince the Council to listen, Deho said. Because if we don't, this doesn't end with a warning. It ends with war. And I don't think we'll win. Somewhere in the dimensional spaces beyond normal reality, hidden among stars that existed in folded space, the vanished civilizations watched and waited. They'd shown their capability. They'd issued their warning. Now they would see if the Council had wisdom enough to listen. On Earth, wherever it truly was, humans went about their lives in their hidden world. They'd learned the most important lesson. Sometimes, survival means making yourself dangerous enough that others think twice before threatening you. They'd taught that lesson to their new allies, species from a dozen different worlds who'd all faced the same threat. And together, they'd change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Council just didn't fully understand it yet. The Council chambers had never seen such disorder. Representatives from 200 worlds shouted over each other, their translation devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. 3 days had passed since the transmission, and the Council had been in continuous emergency session, unable to agree on anything except that something had to be done. Commander Corvan stood at the central podium, his massive form radiating barely controlled anger. He was a warrior from a species that had built its reputation on military strength, and the idea of backing down from any threat was unthinkable. We must mobilize the fleets immediately. Find these hidden civilizations and eliminate the threat. They've demonstrated the ability to infiltrate our systems, access our data, and coordinate attacks across our entire territory. Every moment we delay, they grow stronger. Councillor Velthus rose to support him, his voice booming through the hall. I agree completely. This is an act of war. They've threatened us, marked our observation posts as if they own them, and demonstrated capabilities that challenge our security. We cannot allow such insubordination to stand. It sets a dangerous precedent for every developing species in the galaxy. Other councillors voiced their agreement. The military faction, always influential in council politics, saw this as an opportunity to expand their power and resources. They painted pictures of hidden civilizations growing in strength, building weapons, preparing to strike at the heart of council space. But Nara stood, her luminescent skin bright with emotion. You're talking about war with an enemy we can't find, don't understand, and who has already proven they can reach anywhere in our space, whenever they want. Is this really wisdom? It's survival. Corvan shot back. Or would you prefer we sit here and wait for them to attack us? Gone. They've had months to attack us, Nara countered. They've shown they can disable our facilities, access our data, and move freely through our territory. If they wanted to destroy us, don't you think they would have started by now? Hyunwoo rose from the observation section, something he rarely did. Councillor Nara is right. I've been analyzing every incident attributed to these hidden civilizations. Not once have they caused casualties. Not once have they destroyed infrastructure. They've been careful to demonstrate capability without causing harm. Because they fear us, Velthas said. They're trying to scare us into backing down. Deho stood next. With respect, Counselor, I believe it's the opposite. They're showing restraint. They're giving us a choice. He activated the central display, bringing up the analysis his team had prepared. Look at the pattern of incidents. Every one occurred at a location related to our pre-contact observation program. They're not attacking random targets. They're specifically targeting the systems we use to monitor and evaluate developing species. They're telling us exactly what behavior they want us to stop. One. Taeyong added his voice. And the technology they've demonstrated suggests they're far more advanced than we thought. Moving planets through dimensional space, faster than light communication networks, the ability to remotely access our systems while remaining undetectable. These aren't the capabilities of primitives. Then they're even more dangerous than we thought, Corvan said. Which makes it even more imperative that we act now, before they become unstoppable. The debate raged for hours. Nara's faction argued for diplomacy, for investigating what the hidden civilizations actually wanted, for questioning whether the Council's observation program had been ethical in the first place. Corvan's faction demanded military action, immediate and overwhelming. The moderates tried to find middle ground and satisfied no one. Finally, a vote was called. The chamber fell silent as representatives indicated their positions. The results appeared on the main display. It was close. Terrifyingly close. But the military faction had won. By a margin of only 15 votes out of nearly 500. The Council authorized the formation of a military task force to locate and engage the hidden civilizations. Corvan would lead it personally. He was given command of 300 warships, the largest military deployment in Council history. His orders were clear. Find the hidden civilizations, assess their military capability, and neutralize the threat. Nara found Deho after the session, her expression grim. They've made a terrible mistake. I know, Deho said. Corvan sees this as a military problem with a military solution. He doesn't understand that these civilizations have been preparing for this exact scenario. The humans spent their entire history fighting wars, Nara said quietly. Their entertainment was full of stories about fighting impossible odds. They've had thousands of years to think about how to resist a superior force. And now they've taught everything they know to the other hidden species. Deho pulled up the data from the Sol system incidents. When that survey ship visited Earth 3 years ago, the humans didn't attack it. They disabled it temporarily and let it go. They wanted the Council to know they could defend themselves. The same pattern repeats in every incident since Earth vanished. Demonstration of capability. But always with restraint. They're trying to avoid war, Nara realized. They know they can't win a direct conflict with the entire Council. So they're trying to make us afraid enough to leave them alone. But Corvan doesn't understand fear, Deho said. He only understands strength. And he's about to learn a very hard lesson about the difference between strength and power. The military task force assembled over the next 2 weeks. 300 ships, representing the finest vessels in the Council's fleet. Corvan stood on the bridge of his flagship, reviewing the tactical data. They'd identified the strongest energy signature locations from the recent incidents. Coordinates where the hidden civilization's technology had left detectable traces. The fleet would jump to these locations simultaneously. A coordinated strike designed to overwhelm any defenses. Corvan was confident. 300 ships against a handful of hiding civilizations. No matter how advanced their technology, numbers would win. On the bridge, his tactical officer looked uncertain. We've wasted enough time, Corvan said. The fleet jumps in 1 hour. Prepare all weapon systems and defensive screens. If these hidden civilizations want to threaten the Council, they're about to learn what that costs. Elsewhere, Hyun-woo sat at his terminal in the observation center, monitoring the fleet's preparations. He'd been tracking energy signatures across Council space, looking for any sign of the hidden civilization's response to the military deployment. What he found made his blood run cold. The signatures they'd been tracking, the ones that had seemed scattered across the galaxy, were moving. All of them, converging on Council space. Not from distant locations, but from nearby systems. The hidden civilizations hadn't been far away at all. He ran the analysis 3 times, hoping he was wrong. But the data was clear. Those energy signatures weren't scattered remnants of past incidents. They were active, real-time readings. The hidden civilizations were here, in Council space, right now. Hyun-woo pulled up a star map and marked every signature location. They formed a pattern around the Council's core systems, around their most important worlds. The hidden civilizations hadn't run away to some distant part of the galaxy. They'd surrounded the Council. They'd been watching from next door the entire time. He activated his emergency communication link to Deho. We need to stop the fleet. They're not jumping to find the hidden civilizations. They're jumping into a trap. Deho. But it was too late. On the bridge of his flagship, Corvan gave the order. All ships, prepare for jump. Engage on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Jump. 300 ships vanished into faster-than-light travel simultaneously. They would arrive at their target coordinates in 30 seconds. Corvan watched the countdown, his hand ready over the weapon's control. The fleet dropped out of warp at exactly the designated coordinates. Corvan's tactical display lit up, showing the positions of all 300 ships in perfect formation. Then, the sensors began to update, showing what else was at these coordinates. Nothing. Empty space. Report, Korvan demanded. Where are they? His sensor officer's voice was uncertain. Sir, I'm not reading any vessels. No installations, no energy signatures. The coordinates are empty. Then, one by one, they appeared. Not warships, not battle stations, but planets. 17 worlds, phasing into normal space simultaneously, materializing around the Council fleet. Each one was massive. Each one surrounded by a shimmer of energy that the sensors couldn't properly analyze. Korvan stared at the display, his confidence evaporating. What am I looking at? Sir, his sensor officer said, his voice shaking. I'm reading 17 planetary masses. They just appeared around our position. We're surrounded. On one of those planets, in a command center that existed in folded space, but could interact with normal reality when needed, a human technician named Jamin watched the Council fleet on his displays. He'd been monitoring their communications, tracking their movements, waiting for this moment. He activated the communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies the Council fleet was using. Commander Korvan, this is a message from the Hidden Collective. Stand down your weapons and listen. We have 30 seconds of your time. Korvan's hand hovered over the weapons control, but he didn't fire. 300 ships against 17 planets. The tactical computer was already showing him the calculations, and none of them were favorable. The transmission continued. You came here looking for a fight. We're going to give you something else. Understanding. Look at your sensors. What you're seeing are the planets you thought had died or destroyed themselves. We didn't die. We survived. And we learned. Now we're going to teach you the same lesson the Council taught us. What it feels like to be the weak ones. Back on the Council's central world, Daeho, Nara, and Hyunwoo watched the incoming data from the fleet's position. The energy readings, the mass signatures, the impossible sight of 17 planets appearing simultaneously in perfect formation around the Council's military force. They weren't hiding far away, Nara said softly. They've been right here the entire time, watching us the way we watched them. Daeho understood then what the hidden civilizations had done. They'd spent months positioning themselves, not in distant space, but in the dimensional folds, right next to Council territory. They'd surrounded the Council's core systems, placed themselves in position to appear anywhere they wanted at any time. The humans and their allies hadn't been threatening from a position of weakness. They'd been threatening from a position of overwhelming strategic advantage. And they'd given the Council every chance to understand that without having to demonstrate it. Korvan walked right into their demonstration, Hyunwoo said. They let him come, let him bring his fleet, so they could show him exactly how outmatched we are. On the bridge of his flagship, Korvan stared at the 17 planets surrounding his fleet. And for the first time in his military career, he felt genuine fear.